everybody, and welcome to another Limited Level Ups draft analysis video. If you haven't joined us for one of these before, they're pretty straightforward. They're just like a typical draft video you might see, but instead of me drafting live and playing out the games live, giving you some commentary, I'm looking back and analyzing what I've already done. This lets me really hone in on some of the important decisions, talk through my decision-making process. Basically, it lets me describe my reasoning for doing things a little bit better than if I were just to do it in the moment. So this is probably going to be the last one of these I do for March of the Machine, because we are very soon going to be going to Lord of the Rings, the next format. Without further ado, let's just jump in here. So our pick one, pack one, it's got a lot of pretty powerful cards here. Our rare Knight Errant of Eos is a solid card. It's not a busted rare by any means, and it's kind of funny because this is a Convoke card that plays a little bit differently than a lot of Convoke cards. A lot of Convoke cards, their value is they get you ahead on tempo, right? You get to, let's say, attack with two things, get in a bit of damage, and then you leave one thing back, and you get to cast your Convoke spell for a little bit cheaper than you normally would because you get to tap one of your creatures that maybe couldn't get an attack, right? But you still push damage that turn and developed your board. That's the great thing. You can do both of those things often. This card is a little bit different because it asks you to tap as many creatures as you can, or at least it incentivizes you to, so you get a better selection of what you see. So it's not that it's a bad card, but it does fight a little bit if you're a white aggro beatdown deck. It's almost more for like constructed, where it's like, you know, you play these cards to regas up after a board wipe or something like that, or, you know, you deploy your stuff and maybe out of the board even against the control matchup. So fine card, I'm happy with it, but not the slam dunk out of this pack by any means. The other cards, Skyclave Variolence, just awesome card. It's cheap, it's blue. You know, what more can you want than a good, cheap 2-drop that is in the best color? Also, Merciless Repurposing, very solid card too. Tangled Skyline, I like that card quite a bit. Basically, those are my top four. I would put Merciless Repurposing, Knight Errant of Eos, and Tangled Skyline kind of in the same tier. They're all pretty similar. I don't think I would care one way or the other if somebody took any of these cards, pick one, pack one. But I do think that Skyclave Variolence being a very good cheap card, you know, whenever you can tape cheap cards, that's a great idea. And being the best color, that's what I took. Moving on to pick two, I immediately hover over Amonkhet. Amonkhet is excellent. But also looking at Streetwise Negotiator, Temporal Cleansing, I think, you know, all those three cards are the standout cards of this pack. Everything else here is, you know, filler, maybe filler plus. I do like United New Coalition. I do like Rouse Reinforcements, but everything else doesn't really stand out here. I just go with the Amonkhet here. You know, it's the best card in the pack by quite a bit. If Amonkhet wasn't as busted as it is, I can see taking Temporal Cleansing, just, you know, staying monocolored, being flexible, but Amonkhet's just too good. Just gotta take it. Pick three here, we get a pack with Norn's Inquisitor, which, by the way, it is just fantastic. I know a lot of people know this card is good, but I'm not sure if everybody knows it's as good as it is. I consider this card, Invasion of Amonkhet, and Marshal of Zhalfir, the Blue-White Night Lord. I think those are all the three top tier uncommons in this set, like the kind of the mythic uncommons of the set. And beforehand, I would have said like Amonkhet, not close, that's the best uncommon. But I have actually found that these two cards, Norn's Inquisitor and Marshal of Zhalfir, that they make it to that top tier now. Part of this is a bit of a meta shift, where I think blue-black is actually not as good of a deck anymore. I think that back, you know, the week 1, week 2, you would get 5, 6, 7 maybe good interaction spells for your blue-black control deck. And these days, it's a lot harder to do that. And when your control deck really just needs that number of interaction spells to be a good control deck, it's hard to have a blue-black control deck I'm happy with, basically. So that just means that I'm willing to branch out to other colors a little bit more likely, a little bit more willingly. And I do think with blue-black getting a little bit worse, I think that white-blue, actually, is probably the best deck in the format right now, in my mind. It's the deck I've been drafting a lot. I've been winning with it a lot, so I am thrilled to see Norn's Inquisitor here, because I think this is one of the absolute best cards you could open for that deck. It's just fantastic. Obviously, it's a Knight, but it's also just very good with any Incubate, very good with, you know, any of the Flip Phyrexians. I think sometimes people forget that it does work with the Flip Phyrexians, like the, you know, the Dune Shaper, Tarkir Dune Shaper. You flip that, it's going to be a 5/4 trample, so great card. Other cards in this pack, Temporal Cleansing, Tetsuko, I like those a lot, and I do end up taking the Inquisitor here. You know, I went on and on about it. I'd be surprised if I didn't. But the thing here, too, compared to the last pick, Temporal Cleansing is a solid card. It would be flexible, but I'm just going to take what I think is the much better card. Same thing going on here, right? Like, yes, I'm probably not going to play Invasion of Amonkhet in the same deck as Inquisitor, although I might. There's some weird world where Esper works out, right? But I am just absolutely about taking the most powerful cards here. Flexibility is important, but locking in those like B plus A minus cards is also really important. You really can't afford to give those up because there's very few times you're gonna see those. So I choose to take the powerful route over the flexible route here. And of course, part of this, like I was saying, I do really like blue-white, so I'm not that sad if I have to give up my blue-black start. All right, pick 4 here. We've got quite a few options. 3 really good blue cards in Xeric Strobe Knight, Cyber Cryptomancer, Isaac Ataxius. I think all those cards are pretty darn close. We've also got a Karuga, the Macro Sage. I think that card is fine, but not as good as the cheaper blue cards. Just general tip, like I kind of alluded to this before, I'm sure I've said this before tons of times, but when you can, just take the cheaper card. And, we have the choice between like a 2-mana card versus a 3-mana card. It's pretty close. I think those both qualify as cheap for me, but I'd rather take a 2 or 3-mana card over a 5-mana card, unless that 5-mana card is just excellent. I think Karuga's just fine, but not excellent. So really, I'm like, well, do I take Xeric Strobe Knight? Do I take Cyber Cryptomancer? Do I take Isaac Ataxius? They're all kind of close. I'm kind of on the cusp of blue-white or blue-black right now. It's great that I can take a blue card right now, so that, number 1, blue is awesome, but number 2, I take a card that's in the intermediate between those 2 decks, and I kind of go, you know what? Xeric Strobe Knight is excellent in blue-white. It's pretty good in blue-black, too. Isaac Ataxius is not as good in blue-white, good in blue-black, but I think Isaac is worse in blue-black than Strobe Knight is in blue-white, for example. And then Cryptomancer's like straight down the middle. I'd be happy with the card in either of those decks. I just went for the one with the highest upside, and, it's the uncommon, too, for what it's worth. You're going to see a few more eyes and Cryptomancers in most drafts. This pick, pretty straightforward. It's just Sigil Sentinel in my mind. I think Order to the Mirror is a filler card for your blue-white deck that you should hope to wheel. I think Tidal Terror is kind of the same thing. Like, I'll play a copy, but I'm never prioritizing it. And Sigil Sentinel is just a good card for the night deck, so happy to take that here. All right, pick 6 here. We've got a Aerial Boost, which, by the way, if you have not caught on to Aerial Boost, the good word of Aerial Boost, it's just phenomenal. Like, it's exactly what the white aggro decks want. I take it as the top common in the white aggro decks. I'm happy with 3 or 4 of them a lot of the time. It's good early and good late is really what it comes down to, right? Because early on, it's this combat trick that often is free, right? You play your Knights of the New Coalition on turn 4, you attack with your 2-mana card and your 3-mana card, and your opponent goes, okay, well, even if they do sniff it out, like sometimes they don't sniff it out, they're not observant, they're like, oh, they're just attacking, they're 3-3 into my 4-4, and they're tapped out, what are they doing? But, you get them there sometimes, but even still, even when they do sniff it out, sometimes it's just like, well, I have to block. I can't just take the damage. I know I'm walking into this Aerial Boost, but I have to use it. Or I have to block and make them use it. And then later in the game, it's just 5 to the face, 6 to the face. So really fantastic card. I've had people say, how many Aerial Boosts would you play? And yeah, my number is something like 4 or 5. I had somebody tweet at me. They day 2'd the Arena Open, and they actually they won. They cashed, and they had 6 Aerial Boosts in their deck, and they said they were just all phenomenal. Never was sad to draw multiples. So gonna take that here for sure. As you can see, I'm kind of like looking. Okay, well, I could also take Assimilate Essence. That's the other card that I think is as good as Boost. But just like with a previous pick, where I was like the Strobe Knight, I was like, well, Strobe Knight is X amount of good in blue-white, and Isaac Ataxius, which is the pick I was making for, is X amount of good in blue-black. I'm kind of making that same evaluation here, because I think we could be blue-black or blue-white just now. I do think Aerial Boost gives more to the blue-white decks than Assimilate Essence gives to the blue-black decks, although it's close, I don't think it's that much of a difference. But, all of the same thing, as like I said, I also weighing that I really like blue-white a little bit more than blue-black at this point in the format. Just a little bit easier to get into, it's easy, the pieces are more interchangeable. I was saying the problem with blue-black is you kind of have to pick up enough removal. You also have to pick up enough bombs to make it worth actually playing a control game, because if you don't have bombs, then why are you playing this control game, So it's just easier to cobble together a good blue-white deck at common or uncommon is what I found. All right, at pick 7, we do have something sort of interesting here. So I've just taken white card, right? And we've got a Botanical Brawler, a Tarkir Duneshaper, and a Halo Hopper. Those are the kind of the cards I'm looking at here. I like Duneshaper quite a bit in blue-white. It's just, a cheap thing that turns into a threat later, and the important thing about this card is it's a 1-drop, and blue-white is often pretty heavy on the Convoke. I mean, it's got Aerial Boost like I have, it's also got Temporal Cleansing, the blue interaction spell, and anytime you have Convoke cards in your deck, anything that costs 1 mana just goes up in value, right? Because say you have 5 Convoke cards in your deck. Well, you're most likely going to have one of those in your top 10 cards or so. And if Tarkir Duneshaper is in your opening hand, it acts as a mana elf for that card. So, a good example, another example is there's the card Aki Scrap Chomper, the red 1-drop. And I put that card in my blue-red deck quite a bit. And a lot of times when I'm streaming, chat will say, oh, is that a good card? And I go, well, it's not the worst card. I think the card is, it has value in the late game. but mostly it's a Llanowar Elf in my deck. It taps for mana for 7 or 8 of my cards. So anytime you have Convoke cards or you're anticipating having Convoke cards, you do want to put a priority on the 1-drops. They do go up in value. But there's also a Botanical Brawler in this pack, right? A Botanical Brawler is really, really phenomenal. So I don't love green-white in general. You know, I think green-white is one of the lesser archetypes. I think that if you're a white aggro deck, green adds not that much to the equation. There's very few green cards you actually want in your aggro decks in this set. Botanical Brawler is one of the better ones, though, of course. This is like the reason to be green-white. And so I'm looking at this and I go, okay, you know what? I've just taken 3 white cards. It's been a while since I've seen a good blue card. I took the Aerialist first, Strobe Knight 3rd or 4th or something. And, you know, the packs are kind of drying up as they tend to of blue cards. So I'm going to take this Brawler here. I believe I actually do take it here for the potential of green-white being open. Because when green-white is good, it is really good. You got 3 Brawlers and a good white aggro core shell to your deck. Yeah, it's going to be a super solid deck. I like Halo Hopper and Dune Shaper a lot in the blue-white decks too. Like I said, you want 1-drops in the blue-white decks for your Convoke stuff. You also, because of that, because you want 1-drops, Halo Hopper becomes a good card, so you can play a 2-mana 3/2. All that being said, I think that Dune Shaper and Halo Hopper do come around a little bit later. So I decided to speculate here, right? I just say, you know what? I think that I can probably fill in those roles of Dune Shaper and Halo Hopper a little bit later in the draft. Let me just take the Botanical Brawler. That could open up a pathway to me. Maybe I open up a green bomb or something, and I'm very happy I speculated here. All right, so we do take that Brawler. Pick 8 comes around, and okay, see a good card. See Temporal Cleansing. So, you know, at this point, I'm thinking, likely now, where I was pivoting around blue before, I mean, I still could. Certainly nothing wrong with that. But I almost want to pivot around white now, because blue does not look that open. Black certainly doesn't look open. So I think my chances of being blue-black are just dwindling as the packs go on. So where a blue might have been my base color now before, I think now I'm like flirting with the idea that white might be my base color. And when I say my base color, by the way, I mean for navigation purposes. I mean, I want to anchor into a color so that I can say I'm definitively this color. And when I'm trying to speculate on powerful cards of other colors, you know, I'll take a white card when I can, but I'm never going to train wreck, because you always want to be open to good cards that get passed to you. But it's hard to do that if you're not flexible, and getting deep into one color is something that allows you to be flexible, basically. So I am trying to find that base color, trying to figure out what that is as we go through pack 1 here. It might be blue, it might be white. I'm unsure at this point. This pack, not that strong. I took it for Lid's Favor for a potential green-white deck. I think Fertilid's Favor is a passable trick in your green-white deck. It's kind of funny. Most decks, if you're playing Fertilid's Favor, you're using it for the fixing, but I think it's just like a fine trick in green-white if you care about counters, so I took that there over Blade of Burgeoning, because given my start, like, Blade of Burgeoning, it is a better card in general in the format. I don't think I'm going to end up in some, like, multicolor splish splash green base green pile, right? I would take Burgeoning if I thought my base color might have been green. We're pretty far away from that, though. All right, and then pick 10 here. So this is critical, a really important juncture of the draft. Knight of the New Coalition Wheels, right? And let's just go back to that pack where it originally was, right? This was a pack with not a ton of awesome cards, right? I pointed out the 3 that I liked the first time: the Negotiator, the Invasion of Amonkhet, the Temporal Cleansing. But past that, there's not that much great stuff. And so what that means to me, the fact that Night Wield and Core Halberd, for what it's worth, nobody took a white card out of that pack. And there's even like the Mutagen Connoisseur still here, so it's not like somebody like speculated on a solid gold card. People were taking bad cards, bad cards over white cards. That says to me, this pick is the defining moment where I go, I was unsure what I should make my base. Now I'm just like, okay, it's gonna be white, because a good white card wheeled out of a pack where nobody took a white card and people were going out of their way to take kind of less good cards. So that means they're either unwilling to move out of their own colors for speculating, so I should be the one picking up what they're putting down, right? At any draft table, you have people that are forcing and the people that are reading. And sometimes you want to be a forcer, and those forcers are when you open a bomb and you get past another, like you open a blue bomb, you get past 3 good blue cards in a row, you want to be like, yeah, I'm planting my flag, I'm blue. But if you're not in that spot, and I don't think I'm in that spot, I want to be picking what people are putting down, right? Reading the signals, figuring out what's coming to me. So that was the pick where I go, okay, I'm probably base white now. And oscillating between blue-white aggro and green-white aggro, we'll see where we go. I take a solid 2-drop for a green-white aggro deck. Then I take a Bond Warden, solid in green-white, playable in blue-white if you need it for the Convoke purposes. And I like what we're doing. And you see, I'm kind of rearranging here. I go, okay, white is now my base, and that's such an important thing to identify early in a draft. Like, I really want to hammer that home. If you can, at the end of pack 1, you never at the end of pack 1 have to say definitively, this is my color pair. And I think it actually is negative for you. It definitely holds you back if at the end of pack 1, you're always saying, I know my color pair. Sometimes it's going to work out because you're like, wow, these colors are just open. But at the end of pack 1, if you can say, I know my one base color, that will really help you guide you through the rest of the draft, right? That's going to help you set you on the course for no matter what the draft throws at you, you're going to come out the other side with a good deck. All right, I will order the mirror, so put that in the blue pile. You know, definitely a fine filler card in my blue-white Knight deck. And, you know, look at my pile here. I definitely have more blue cards than I have green cards by quite a bit. But again, I'm still thinking about it. I'm still like, I could be green-white. You know, like I said, open a green bomb, definitely have potential. I open another brawler, that's potential too. What we open here is a good blue card. So I do end up taking the good blue card. And you know, at this point, I'm like, okay, probably 80% likely to be blue-white, probably 20% likely to be something else. But we take C-Double. It's not the absolute best card for a blue-white deck because blue-white tends to have the game go quickly, you know, wants to end the game by turn 7 or something. And not to say this card isn't good if you just use one mode, but to maximize on it, you know, you really do feel the difference between one mode and 2 modes on this when they get to 8 cards in the graveyard, and that takes the game going on for a little bit longer. So good card, not a absolute bomb in my deck, but good enough to take over like Tandem Takedown, which is my the second option here. Moving on to pick 2 here, see, you know, not a ton of options, some middling white cards, the Billy Rider, Dune Shaper. Like I mentioned, I don't mind Dune Shaper, but kind of upset to take it pick 2 if I had to. There is a Meeting of Minds, though, and Meeting of Minds is quite solid. There's also a Tranquil Cove, and Tranquil Cove is interesting to me. I could actually take that here. I think it's a close pick between the land and the Meeting of Minds. I do really want one dual land in my blue-white deck. Just making the mana run smoother means you're going to have to mulligan less often. Like, you know, I know some people push back against tap lands and aggro decks, but the calculus I always make is it's better to be have your mana and be a turn behind rather than be mana screwed, need to mulligan, not ever have that blue source. So I do like at least my first copy. So it's a high value card here. But I think I ended up just taking the Meeting of Minds. Like, Meeting of Minds is a funny card too, because generally in your aggro decks, you can't afford to put a pure card draw spell in your deck. Something that just draws cards. And if you had a creature that drew you a card, sure, you're affecting the board. That's great. Inspiring Overseer, Organ Hoarder, those kind of cards. Meeting of the Minds is a bit different though because of Convoke. Like, you can often play your stuff, attack, especially because a lot of the cards in blue and white have vigilance, and draw your cards, so you're not really giving that much up like you might be if you put like just a straight up divination in your deck. So I do like Meeting of Minds in my blue-white decks quite a bit. I take that pretty happily, and we get to this pack here. So we get past a Broodlord, a Hoarding Broodlord. There's a Sigil Sentinel, perfectly fine playable, and I mentioned this in my last video, but I want to reiterate it here for folks that maybe didn't see the last one. When you get past a bomb pack 2, like the middle of pack 2, you really have to not get stun locked. I think a lot of people are like, oh, whoa, that's a powerful card. It's getting passed to me. That mean I should draft it? Most likely not. So the thing I usually say is, if you've already got a good deck going, don't train wreck yourself, right? Like, if I had all just white cards and no blue cards, like maybe 3 blue cards, I could speculate on this, certainly. Just be like, sure, maybe it works out, maybe I end up in black, maybe I pick up good black cards this pack, but the thing to consider is, I've got a good deck going here. I'm almost certainly going to be blue-white at this point, and the thing you have to consider, of course, is that the packs go left, right, left. So pack 1, ask yourself, how open was black? Well, not very open at all, right? We just didn't see, I even noticed it wasn't very open. I noted that when we were looking at the cards. And so what that means is, you're going to be in a real tough spot in pack 3 if you take this Broodlord here. Because yes, black might be open this pack, but it's not going to be open pack 3 because people in pack 1 were cutting you off of black. And that's going to happen the same thing in pack 3 most likely. So instead, what you want to do in this situation where you've already got a good deck going, you want to pass on the bomb, right? You want to pass on the off-colored bomb because that means, hey, you're hooking the person next to you up. They're going to hook you up back with blue and white cards, hopefully in pack 3, right? You're kind of playing nicely with your neighbors. Where you don't want to play nicely with your neighbors, and here's where, you know, the next level of this. You could take this Broodlord if your draft wasn't going so well. Say you did need some power. Say your pack 1 was like, that wasn't great. You don't have a deck coming together. You don't have a base color. What you can then do, with the knowledge, of course, that you're going to probably get cut off of black in pack 3, is you take the good card. You take as many cards of that color as you can in this pack. Take all the good black cards that will come to you most likely. And then in pack 3, you take cards of a different color. Your other color that you're in. Maybe, like, say, for example, I started in white and I wasn't that happy with how my draft was going, but I get past that. This Broodlord. Great. I take it, take all the black cards this pack, take white cards in pack 3. You should only do that, though, if your deck is already not good, because I believe that strategy of take the cards in pack 2 that of a color that isn't really open going the other way is worse than just like we're doing here, having a good pack 1 and a good pack 3. So I'm happy to just take this, pass on this Broodlord, take the Sigil Sentinel, really solidify my neighbors in drafting black, and pack 3 should pan out pretty nicely for us. All right, and we get past Norn's Inquisitor. That's just excellent. Just, you know, one of the best uncommons you could possibly pick up. I love Captive Weird too. Excellent card, but not quite as good as Norn's Inquisitor, so just gonna slam that. Pick 5 comes along. Pick a Zhalfirin Lancer, just a really solid payoff for the Knights deck. Happy to take that. Wouldn't mind the Knight in New Coalition as well, but happy with the 3-drop. And look here, it's kind of interesting. I even bring the Brawler back in after taking a great white card, the Norn's Inquisitor, that cares about counters. And again, still not having seen that many blue cards. So you can see, I'm still going back and forth here. I'm like, still on the table. I'm not counting it out yet. I'm likely going to be blue, but I'm not counting it out. Oh, also, there's a Daxos in that pack. I think Daxos just isn't that good. You know, it's like it's a hard to cast 2-drop. And it sometimes gets gotten by random, like, you know, your opponent has a Sunder the Gateway. Just like, that's just a nightmare if your 2-drop is Daxos. And Daxos is, you know, the ceiling on the card is not that great. You gain a few life, and it's maybe a little bit difficult to block. Pick 6, not that exciting. I pick up an Inga. Playable card if I need it. I think the way this draft is going, I'm not going to need it. Take a second Meeting of Minds. You know, definitely a solid pickup there. I like that over the Halo Hopper just in general. You know, maybe if I had a lot more good 1-drops, I would take Halo Hopper, but I'm happy to play 2 Meeting of Minds. Shapecraft, also a solid card, especially with the Inquisitors. Anytime you have Incubate, you really like Shapecraft, because Shapecraft just gives +4, +3 to incubate creatures, because they are base 0 toughness, or power and toughness, so kind of a nice little synergy there. Pick 9, you know, nothing really going on here. Pick 10, we have the Dune Shaper. I'm happy about that. Again, really nice little combo with both my Convoke cards and my Norn's Inquisitor, so nice card slotting in there. Rest of pack 2, didn't really pick up anything that exciting except this Halo Hopper here. And ding, 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 I'm waving it around like, yes, good last pick. And, you know, I do luck into opening one of the best cards I could possibly open for a blue-white aggro deck in Zephyr Singer. Very happy about that. Obviously, a little bit of luck involved here, but, you know, you take the luck where you can get it. And then we just rattle off a bunch of awesome cards here. So I get past the Progenitor Exarch, which, to be fair, I think is pretty close to Farah's Dispersal. I think that without the 2 Norn's Inquisitors, where, you know, Norn's Inquisitor plus Exarch is awesome, you start making 4/4s, I actually might have taken Dispersal. I think that these cards are deceptively close. I ended up going with the Exarch. I do think it is better, given the cards I already have. But just wanted to point out that I think the cards are pretty close. As you can see, I'm even, like, hovering over it, like, I'm not quite sure. I'm looking at my deck. I probably even came to the conclusion in that moment of, like, okay, yeah. I've got the Inquisitors. I definitely want the Exarch here. And then get a Invasion of Gobakon. This card's awesome, too. One of the better battles for your... Actually, one of the only good battles for your aggro decks. Just the fact that it's so cheap and so easy to flip. And the backside is awesome. Very, very happy to pick that up. So, you know, we're getting paid out here for our read in pack 1. We read the way it was open in pack 1. Made it our base color. Got past the Exarch. And got past an Invasion of Gobakon, right? So we are actually... You know, I think there's some drafts that... You can watch and be like, oh, you were just in the right lane from the early on parts of the draft, and you just, you know, happened to get past good cards. Obviously, that was an easy lane to fall into. And this draft is sort of like that, but I do think identifying to make white your base color is critical in getting paid out this way. Wait, I could easily have just said, well, blue is a good color. I'm going to make that my base color. But that wheel pick, right, again, wheeling that Knight of the New Coalition really framed how I thought this draft was going to go. All right, nothing much here. There's a Glistening Dawn. I'm pretty sure I just took the 20 gems and deprived somebody from playing Glistening Dawn. I guess I actually should have technically taken the Jingataxias, because that's more gems than the rare, but, you know, whatever. Oh, I did do that. Never mind. I took the Mythic, not the rare. Great. And then, you know, pick 5 here. We get another Lancer. We get another Temporal Cleansing. Pretty close pick, I think. I actually think I end up taking Temporal Cleansing just because you do really want 1 or 2 Temporal Cleansings in your blue-white deck. Really good for tempo, just being able to go 2-drop, 3-drop, 4-drop, and cast Cleansing, get in for an attack. One of the with key cards in my mind for these decks. Another aerial boost, so things are just, you know, just lapping up some awesome cards as we go on here. Take a Kithkin Billy Rider. Probably not going to play it, but I also didn't think I was going to play the second Meeting of Minds, so... You know, we've already got a great deck. I'm just filling in the gaps at this point and just maybe upgrading some cards here and there. If I can upgrade my Enduring Bond Warden to another Dune Shaper, I'll like to do that. But our deck isn't really missing anything at this point, right? We got enough cheap cards. I guess I could do with another 2-drop or 2, another good 2-drop. But we've got enough cheap cards, we've got enough interaction, we've got, you know, good ways to push damage in the aerial boost and the Zephyr Singer. So really anything we pick up from this point is just gravy. Big 8 here, get a Assimilate Essence, which is a fine card. You know, I don't love this in blue-white because you're tapping out early a lot of the time, and it's still a passable card. I don't mind it. I could have taken Wicked Slumber too, and I even looked like, okay, well, how much interaction do I have? I figure with 2 aerial boosts and 2 cleansings, the Wicked Slumber was just unnecessary. I think Assimilate Essence is a generically better card. If I really needed interaction, I might have taken the Slumber, but you know, I feel like I had enough at this point. And then here, you know, Ned Collision, that Wheeling too, that's excellent for me too. That is an upgrade on some of my cards for sure. And I believe that's the last relevant card that I picked up, so let's go to the build. All right, and going into the build here, I'm actually doing something a little bit different. We are live here, I can move around these cards. And I'm going to show you the final build laid out curve-wise in a second. But I thought it'd be cool just to look at what I consider to be the most important parts and the core to this deck, and what I consider to be, you know, kind of interchangeable. So starting at the top here, just the best of the best cards, right? Just Gobakon, Zephyr Singer, powerful cards, the premium 2-drops. These are the core to my deck. There's no way I would ever cut these, right? Just below that, we've got the premium Convoke cards. Again, I mentioned Aerial Boost is so important for these decks. I also think that Temporal Cleansing is quite important. Progenitor XR, pretty strong card, not quite as good as these ones, but making it to that second tier. Then we've got the good filler, right? The Lancer, the Strobe Knight, the C-Double. No, filler might not be the best word, but it's like not critical to the deck. I'm happy to have these cards, but they're not filling any particular role that I feel like I really need. Then the rest of the deck, you know, just these 1-drops that, you know, they play a part, but I could, you know, take them or leave them basically. Assimilate Essence isn't amazing here, like I mentioned, but it is a playable 2-drop, playable 3-drop. I like Knight in the Coalition, but again, it's pretty interchangeable. I could have a Bola Slinger in this slot. I could have a Protocol Knight in this slot. Even, you know, I probably even would prefer those cards. And then Meeting of the Minds, you know, it's a good card. I like it generally, but it wouldn't be a disaster if I didn't have these. So this is kind of the layout. Again, just best of the best. Right under that, good filler and interchangeable filler is the way I would put it. And again, like C-Double might surprise some people as this is the kind of good filler side instead of being over here. But again, it's just like, you know, if you're cloning a creature, that's cool. If you're copying a spell, that's cool. You're not always going to get your mana's worth. Sometimes you're cloning a 3-drop or something. So in this more aggro deck that is playing a shorter game, I do consider it in this tier rather in this tier or this tier. And here's the final deck. Curve looks maybe slightly wonky, but it's more like, you know, more like this or like this, right? It does look like a good curve if you consider the Convoke cards consistently cost 1 or 2 mana less. And yeah, was very happy with this deck, so let's jump into some games. Alright, so here are the games. Last time I did one of these videos, I asked people to comment how many games you wanted to see for these kind of draft videos, and most people said just show us as many as you possibly can. So I think I'm going to go through all of the games from this draft, and yeah, here's game 1. Pretty solid opening hand, you know, can't really complain. I've got a decent curve, I've got one of the best, if not the best cards in my deck, in Zephyr Singer in my hand. One small note here about what 1-drop I decided to play. It's kind of close and probably inconsequential, but I did decide to play the Bond Warden instead of the Dune Shaper, just in case the opponent wanted to trade off their 2-drop with my 1-drop on turn when I attack next turn. It's unlikely they're going to want to do that, but it doesn't really harm me to you know, just in case. For example, say my opponent had a particularly defensive-minded hand, and this Swordsworn Cavalier, they say, hey, I just want to get to 5 mana. Maybe they have a rare or something in hand. You know, if I play the Dune Shaper, they're like, sure, I might even just block that, even though, like I said, they probably won't. Here, it gives them a little bit less of a good option. They don't really want to trade this Bond Warden off. And just a note here, you know, it looks like we're an aggro versus aggro matchup. And one of the things to think about in an aggro versus aggro matchup is really understanding and kind of deducing who the true beatdown in this matchup is. Because, you know, when I submit my deck, I am assuming that I'm going to be the beatdown in most matchups. And I'm sure my opponent here is assuming that same thing too. So you really want to take in how my opponent is attacking, what they're willing to attack with. Maybe they're making particularly aggressive attacks. Well, that can kind of inform you what kind of cards they have in their hand. Or the inverse of that, maybe attacks that they don't want to make that looked kind of okay to you. It's like, okay, well, maybe they don't have that much of an aggressive hand. So really the early turns of the aggro versus aggro matchups are kind of sussing out that information. All right, so they had a pretty good turn there. They went 2-drop into Halo Hopper, so their board is nice and developed. I'm getting with my Bond Warden. I don't think they're going to trade off the Halo Hopper, so it's a pretty free attack for me. And they play an island, so that's interesting to me. Not exactly sure what that means. Partially it means that, okay, well, if they have multiple colors in their deck, they probably have some powerful cards that they're splashing for, so that kind of says to me, okay, I probably do want to be the one to beat down here, which is kind of funny, right? Because they're attacking me with three power creatures, and as you know, I beat down within reason. I want to long-term strategy, try to set up in the next, when I say long-term, I mean in the next like 2 or 3 turns, set up a board position that can try to set up lethal. But in the short term, I'm probably going to have to make some good trades so I don't just die. Okay, so I make trades here, and I actually make what I think is a mistake here. So I'll show you what I did. They attack with their Cavalier, the Halo Hopper, and the other Cavalier. I go for, it's, you know, kind of risky, first of all, going for a defensive combat trick, but they only have 2 cards in hand. Also, if they have like a Volcanic Spite, I'm not that shooken up if this Bond Warden dies. I figured, okay, they're attacking me. I want to keep her on my board state. I should keep her on my board state because, again, I am trying to kill them basically before they can get to their more powerful cards. I also want to keep my creatures around because I have Zephyr Singer in hand. And so I'm thinking, okay, I want to use this aerial boost to save my Bond Warden, but I think this is actually a bit of a mistake here. Not because the risk of what could happen, but because since these 2 Cavaliers have First Strike, I could have just blocked here. First Strike would happen. Bond Warden's ability would trigger. I could put the counters on my Sigil Sentinel, and then it would eat the Halo Hopper. So I think I had a good opportunity for not blinking first, basically. This would have worked out fine. I would have been happy with a 4/4 Sentinel and their Halo Hopper dead. So I think I should just let that go. I'd also have the aerial boost for later down the road when I actually want to, like, you know, get over the top for lethal. In any case, you know, we just, I try to cast the Singer, and then I go, whoa, no, I can't do that. So then I go, okay, I guess I have to cast Meeting of the Minds this turn, which is fine. All right, so I just passed the turn here. I can't attack into their Incubate token, which threatens to be a 3/3. And now I've kind of accomplished my short-term goal, right? My short-term goal was stabilize to the point where I'm not just getting beaten down. Now is the turn where I'm like, okay, whenever I can start getting in damage, now I'm going to try to flip the script on them. They were aggressive early, but they didn't have the tools to back up that damage, and now I can be the one to take that driver's seat of being the beatdown. Because in those aggro versus aggro matchups, you want to be the beatdown. You want to be the one to set the pace of the game. And sometimes it's possible, sometimes it's not, but you're always going towards that goal. All right, they play Mirror Shield Hoplite. Could be a little bit scary, but seemingly nothing for now. And again, I want to now, I'm like, okay, I really, really do want to end this game. And luckily, Aerial Boost and Zephyr Singer are pretty good tools for that. Yeah, and Zephyr Singer gonna come down, gonna be able to give 4 of my things flying here, which is awesome. Yep, get in with my Aerialist. And now I'm like, all right, well, now I'm already counting lethal. I'm like, okay, can I just kill them next turn? And that's on my mind. They play another Hoplite here, and, if I remember correctly, a backup creature. Yes, they do play a backup creature here. So here's a really important juncture in the game. I think this is why it's always important to have, you know, that kind of story of the game going, saying, what's your goal? What are you trying to do? And right now my goal is just try to kill them. And now that they play a Sigil Sentinel targeting their Hoplite, doubling the trigger, I might have to reassess. I might go, okay, well, I can't take lethal damage, obviously, and I don't want to die over the course of 2 attacks. So I really go from, in this part of the game, I go from the big picture, kind of broad, like, okay, I'm generally trying to do this thing, because I've already identified that. And now I look at specifics. How are the numbers actually going to play out? How much damage can my opponent attacking for this turn? How much damage can I attack my opponent back for this turn? So that's the calculation I'm doing on this turn. And I think especially with, you know, my opponent played Mirror Shield Hoplite, they play a backup creature, these triggers are going all over the place. It might be very tempting to be like, okay, they're going crazy, I gotta block. And it's like, well, number 1, I'm at 17. I've got a little bit of life to play with. But 2, if I block here, it just means that I have less things to attack them back with. And I definitely just did the calculation of, oh, can I just kill them? And I go, okay, I'm gonna count on my board, how much of it is flying. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, potentially gonna be 11, 12, 13, and aerial boost for lethal. I don't even need to block here. So I think some players might go, ooh, emergency, I'm taking too much damage, I gotta block. It's really important in these really tight combat situations. Just do the math. That's honestly my my advice. Just do the math here. And I did the math, and this was lethal, and won the game. Yeah, I'm very tricky here. I did the attack with Bond Warden post-combat because I have Vigilance, be able to convoke my combat trick, and there we go, lethal damage. All right, game 2, pretty good opening hand. It is a 2-lander with no 2-drop. Well, no, quote-unquote 2-drop. I can cast my Invasion and Goblicon. These are the kind of hands you should keep, by the way. I know a lot of people are like, I've been here before, and I kept a 2-lander with a 3-drop, and I just never hit my 3rd land. It doesn't matter. Like, you should just trust the math. The math says you're, like, 70% plus to get there by turn 3. So, yeah, it's gonna happen sometimes, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't keep these kind of hands. And here I have an option. I can cast the Invasion of Goblicon, which I do, or, you know, look at their hand and make something more expensive. Or I can hold up a Simulate Essence. I basically just figure, you know, I want to do the proactive thing. I want to also give myself some information so I know better what to spend this Assimilate Essence on. Also might mess up their turn 2 or turn 3 here. So yeah, I just like nabbing something and going from there. And nabbing, notable about this hand too. One of the things is that my opponent doesn't have black mana, and they have 2 black cards in hand. So definitely going to want to take this Overgrown Pest so they can't find that. Another just small thing that I would point out, and I think often when people have effects like, Invasion of Gobakon or anything that looks at your opponent's hand, I think too often people don't look at what lands your opponent has. Like, I say this because on my side, my opponent has done stuff like cast Invasion of Gobakon or cast Traumatic Revelation and taken a card that I just couldn't cast at the time. Like, I just literally didn't know how to have the mana. And I think it's partially because Arena, it highlights these spells and doesn't highlight the lands here. But, I think it might be easy to be like, oh, I want to take their 2-drop here, their Nezumi Informant, or their removal spell. But they just can't cast those right now. So I'm just, I put a lower priority on taking those. All right, so I missed my 3rd land drop, but I did draw a Norn's Inquisitor, which is pretty nice. Means I have a pretty good turn next turn. Even if I don't draw that land, I can hold up Essence and activate the token in a turn. I do draw that 3rd land, luckily, though. Yep, play my Lancer. They pass it back. They do find another pest, which is nice. So maybe they get their black mana here, but nope, only a forest. Lucky for me. And back to my turn, I'm thinking, okay, well, I could Cleansing their Analyst and get in with the Lancer. And if they don't, if they don't block with the pest, I flip my battle. And if they do, they've trump blocked. But I just say, you know what? I want to use my interaction spell for pushing damage. I want to develop my board first, basically, right? Like, number one, I get to counter. I know that they're going to cast Pest in this turn, next turn. So I have a good window to make sure I can get this Assimilate Essence out of my hand. Because, honestly, at this point, it is a little bit of a liability. I want to be developing my board. And luckily, things pan out nicely for me. They do cast their Pest, and I'm pretty sure this is actually the last relevant turn of the game. We just, make everything flying, and I think that was just too much for the opponent. I just, make 3 of my giant creatures flying, and I think they're already behind. They're going to have a tough time coming back. And, they take the draw step, and I think they just scoop here, if I remember. Yeah, and that's the game. All right, game 3. Got a pretty good opening hand here. Opponent plays a Captive Weird, unfortunately. They get to play their awesome cards before I do. Yeah, and then they play a Marshall, so already I feel pretty behind, right? Like, I felt pretty good about an opening hand with Norn's Inquisitor, but the opponent went awesome 1 into awesome 2, and yeah, I mean, definitely anybody's game at this point, but I'm already feeling the pressure. Yeah, and even more so, they go for the Sentinel, so they have a pretty good attack here. And again, going back to the aggro versus aggro conversation I had before, I'm clearly not the beatdown right now. I'm just trying to mitigate this damage. I have way more cards in hand than they do, so I'm just trying to survive and leverage my cards. Eventually, I have this Progenitor Exarch, so I do just want to be stemming a lot of bleeding at this point. I don't care too much about pushing damage, and in fact, I can't really do that really. So I'm just going to basically make my opponent's life as hard as possible, put up good blockers, make it so that they have to use a trick if they want to get through. I'm making a 3/3 Sigil Sentinel here, using the best of my mana. That means that they have to do something if they don't want just their Sigil Sentinel to trade here. They go for flipping their Captive Weird, and this puts me in kind of an interesting spot. And they flip a Halo Forger off it. So they go and attack it, and I think, okay, well, I have 2 options here, right? I can either just trade Sigil Sentinel for Sigil Sentinel, or I can double block, get the 4/4 off the table. I like to just go blocking the Sentinel, because the next turn I can play my 2-drop and wake up the Incubate token as a 3/3. Also, holding up Assimilate Essence here, that's even better, actually works out, because now I can go, okay, wake up my 3/3, counter the Halo Forger, and now I'm not feeling too bad. I'm not feeling like I'm under a ton of pressure. Definitely still slightly behind compared to the opponents, but I don't feel like I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm just getting run over just now. That being said, though, yeah, I'm not under a ton of pressure, but I do think I actually made a mistake here. I chose not to block this 4/4 coming at me. I think in hindsight, I should have just activated my 3/3 here, my 2/2 Incubator turning into a 3/3, double blocked this 4/4 here, and then line up the counterspell versus the Halo Forger. Yes, they could have tapped down my blocker after I woke it up, but that means they're using 2 mana on their turn. So I think at this point I was just thinking, okay, well, I'm going to keep some stuff around, not trade off my board if I need to cast this Cleansing, and then it'd be a pretty bad tempo turn if I had to cast 4 mana to cast Cleansing. But, just following my logic I had before, I just want to get to the late game, right? This Exarch definitely advantages me as the game goes on, so I do think this was a mistake here for me not to just try to block. Alright, I do get to counter the Halo Forger, though, so that's kind of nice. They play a Dust Legion Duelist, I get to wake this up, and, still not feeling too bad. They have 2 cards in hand, feeling a little bit low on life, and especially against a white deck, anytime you're in this, 10 damage range, you have to really worry about going to 5 or whatever, so that they don't just aerial boost you out of the game. I go over the Exarch, just, making my next turn after is going to be quite good, waking up 2 4/4s. And the opponent makes what I think is a really good play here, by the way. And it's going to really show why I think it's a good play in a second. But just to spoil it, actually, I lose this game by them aerial boosting. I was just talking about aerial boost. I do lose this game by them eventually aerial boosting and just killing me. And so when the opponent has aerial boost in hand, they're kind of thinking, okay, how am I getting in the next 4 points of damage? And they know their window is closing because I'm going to have a good board on the ground. So they do this proactive tap down on my 3/3 because they know, and this is a sign of, I can tell my opponent knows what I'm trying to set up and what I'm trying to do. They're putting themselves in my shoes. They know that I'm trying to set up these 3/3s become 4/4s next turn. I have good blocks in the ground. So what they do is they proactively tap to my 3/3 to disincentivize me from blocking this Conjurer so that they can get in those final few points or getting me to 6 or 5 so that aerial boost is actually lethal, right? Because I would have gone for the double block here, right? 3/3 and 1/2 on their 4/4. That's kind of nice. And you might even think from their perspective, hey, if they have aerial boost there, aren't they just happy to get that 2-for-1? I don't think so, because then what's their point? What's their path to victory? They're just going to keep attacking me on the ground? I mean, that might work out for them. Maybe they have a bunch of removal spells in hand, but as they can see, I'm going to be set up on the ground next turn, and that's not even accounting for what I have in hand. So again, by tapping to my 3/3, and I do go for the double block in the Duelist, but they go, okay, great. I got in this 4 points of damage here, and as we'll see, it's going to be kind of the end of me here. This is the play that really sets up their next turn well for them. Yep, and then they play an Aura of the Mirror. I draw a Tarkir Dune Shaper. And I think at this point, after they made that play, I tuned in just like a slight, basically not even a whole turn, but like half of a turn too late to them potentially having aerial boost. I should have included in this earlier. And I was thinking, at this point now, it was on my mind. And I was thinking, okay, well, should I Temporal Cleansing this 4/4? Because then that would prevent lethal. Well, I don't think so, because then, like, they can just transform this Order of the Mirror, and then they get to just kill me anyways, because it'll be 4 power. All they need is a land, and I'm sorry, they don't even need a land. I'm tapping out at this point. They can just go transform with mana and then convoke. So I'm dead to aerial boost anyway, so I just go for, you know what, I'm just going to pretend they don't have aerial boost here. And again, I could have played around this. I could have played in a way that, respected the aerial boost. I chose not to, and that was because I recognized half a turn too late what their plan was and why they proactively tapped me down. And of course, there's the boost, and I end up losing. Alright, next game with a pretty solid hand. Opponent plays a 1-drop, I have a 1-drop. This Norn's Inquisitor, it's been showing up a lot. I gotta see. I guess I do have 2 of them, but, I've been very lucky to draw them in my opening hand, or at least my top 10 cards most of the time. And it looks like we have another matchup against Red-White, which I think is good for us. Like, generally, I think Blue-White matches up a little bit, pretty well against Red-White. It goes a little bit bigger. Its creatures are slightly bigger generally. Basically, in any matchup in Magic, you want to be in the position where you're just, like, slightly bigger than the opponent, right? Not so big that they can go under you, but, you play a 3-mana 3/3 when they're playing a 3-mana 2/3 or whatever it is, right? I think Blue-White's creatures, they scale a bit better. I've got these Incubate tokens that can get big because of my Norn's Inquisitor, so I think the Red-White deck's going to have a reasonably tough time pushing through here. And of course, just like small abilities like Vigilance and stuff helps. Cheap interaction like my Temporal Cleansing, all that stuff adds up to where I feel pretty comfortable here, even though they've gotten up to a pretty good start. Yeah, they just say, I don't want to trade off my frontliner for Norn's Inquisitor, which, it's fine. I think that's a reasonable assessment to make from their side. And I play Lancer here, by the way, instead of Strobe Knight. I just very much value, again, what I just said, like being a little bit bigger than them. This Lancer holds back their 2/2, and, anything else they might have coming my way. Not the Dreadship, of course, but if I just play the Strobe Knight, I don't have a great double spell turn lined up, at least not without tapping a bunch of my blockers, convoking next turn. And so I'm just like, all right, well, this 2/2 flyer is not going to do that much. I'm not going to want to block with it. It attacks worse than the Lancer, so I'm just going to play my Lancer here. It blocks better, and I do think it attacks better, too. Opponent plays a Cavalier, which I'll find. Just, a bunch of ground stuff. Again, just feeling pretty good about ourselves here. We're just going to slowly outscale them, get in with our flyers, block on the ground. And while I do, eventually want to turn the corner, and I think I am kind of the controlling deck here, I do want to defend now and turn the corner sooner rather than later. I don't think that turns now, right? I don't really like getting a hint. I don't really like attack with my 3/3s. They just trade off with their 3/1s, and that's just, like, not that great for us. So I just keep up my counterspell, keep up my activation. Basically, I just feel like, if I can just trade off the board here, I'm pretty happy. They're the one, the onus is on them to do something proactive, and I'm like, sure, you want to attack their Dune Shaper? That's fine. Okay, they don't. They just, say I'm just going to transform it. Like, basically, I think the way I lose this game, I was saying it's a pretty good matchup. The way I lose this game is I just get a little bit too antsy, like 1 turn too early, right? I attack just a turn too early. That opens the door for them to, like, go like, okay, I take the damage, and they have a pretty good attack back. Maybe they draw a removal spell or a good combat trick where I don't have a good block lined up anymore. So like that is how, you know, if you're on the opposite side of this matchup, that's how you win. You look for that window where your opponent turns the corner maybe just a little too soon, or maybe gets a little bit too comfortable here. And they start to make an attack that they might regret on the next turn. And here, once again, just like aerial boost, showing why it's so good. I get to like play my Sentinel, get in a pretty big attack here. They go for a double block, and I go, yeah, just virtually 1 mana, win the combat here. Yep, trade off a pretty meaningful part of their board. Yeah, now they look to be flooding, and I'm like, all right, cool. And I'm just like super in the driver's seat now. I'm just gonna play it chill. I just pass here. Once again, I've got the C double up. I can make a copy of my Norn's Inquisitor end of turn if I want to, which I think is what I'm going to do, because copying Norn's Inquisitor is pretty good. But I'm glad I held this up and didn't cast Strobe Knight. They cast an Atali. I get to assimilate Essence. I could have had some fun. I could have gone C double and, you know, I spun the wheel myself, but I just said, you know, I'm not willing to take that wager in this position where I'm already pretty ahead. Then I draw Zephyr Singer, and you know the game starts to go up from there. I would say after drawing the best card in my deck and countering probably the best card in their deck. Yep, I make an attack this turn, and then I just play the Zephyr Singer, and I'm pretty sure once again Zephyr Singer just pretty quickly prompts a concession. All right, they drew a 9th land, and yep, that's it. All right, jumping into the next game here, and as loath as I am to mulligan, I do think this is a mulligan in a aggressive deck. If I was a more controlling deck where I didn't mind just sitting back forever, counter their 2-drop, draw some cards, you know, even if these cards weren't castable just yet, I would draw into my lands. For your aggressive decks, you kind of just can't afford that. You have to really be playing something on 2, at the very least making sure you're playing something on 3, proactively, by the way. Like, I have something to play on 2, right? But it wouldn't be advancing my actual game plan here. So I send this one back, both because it doesn't have a 2-drop that attacks or blocks, and because I am missing a color here. And I mulligan to a much better hand. Double Norn's Inquisitor is awesome. I put back the Sentinel, which might look a little bit weird, by the way, putting back the 3/3 creature instead of just a land. I maybe could have put back a land, but you know, I've got 2 Inquisitors. Those are mana hungry. I've got Zephyr Singer, which, you know, I don't think that really ties into the equation that much. But with the 2 Norn's Inquisitors, I just don't want to miss my 3rd land drop, basically. So they're bashing. I say, no blocks. This Inquisitor has value. And especially when you got double Inquisitor out. Oh, man. Like, these tokens are going to become 5/5s. Or, sorry, 4/4s. But, you know, still awesome. Yeah, but I play it out here. I could have just passed and, you know, left up the activation so they couldn't really block. But I decided, you know, I'm just going to get this down because I'm going to take a little bit of chip damage here, maybe go to 11, but next turn's going to be so good because I'm just going to have 2 4/4s. Yep, and they equip the beat stick, they get in, I say, alright, sure, no, not a huge deal here. I'm actually a little bit surprised they didn't attack with the Huntmaster. I think maybe they sniffed out the aerial boost I had here, potentially, or they just wanted to keep up the Huntmaster activation with the treasure they're making. Alright, and now we're just like, alright, they're not really pressuring that hard. I've got a counter spell, I've got 2 4/4s. I'm feeling pretty good about myself here. Alright, and they cast an Aetherblade Agent, which is high on the list of cards I am actively happy to see. You know, I just really don't mind a 1/1 Death Touch here. And, you know, they didn't attack, so obviously I have 2 4/4s on board, but that just gives me the information of, okay, they don't have a trick, they don't have anything that can help them in combat here. So I have a little bit more information about their hand now. Yeah, we draw the Blue Source, they're able to Zephyr Singer, and again, we're just cruising at this point. And, you know, I have drawn my Zephyr Singer quite a bit, but at the same time, I think, like, the getting to the plus spot where it's like, okay, I feel okay tapping some creatures here, going shields down for a second, holding up aerial boost, or just, you know, how to maneuver your spot into after you've cast Zephyr Singer, or before you cast Zephyr Singer, to a spot where it's like, okay, and actively feel okay about tapping some creatures here. And mind you, look, I kept back a 4/4 because I wasn't fully on board with, hey, like, I think we're in such an awesome position. Again, I think this is the point, or the way that my opponent wins or comes back here, is I make a brash attack, or I tap too many things here, and they do get into good attack. So I am still being cautious here. Right, they equip their agent, which is an annoying thing to have to block here, so I'm just not going to. I'm just going to go, alright, take 2. Not a huge deal. And again, now I'm just thinking, alright, how many turns until lethal, right? I attack a few turns with this Zephyr Singer and this 4/4, and then what's the turn number past this turn where aerial boost becomes lethal? And that's, you know, 3 turns from now, basically. Draw Invasion of Gobakon, cast that, take a look at their hand. I see a Furnace Gremlin and another Stormclaw Rager. I just hit the Gremlin because, you know, if they want to cast another Rager, it's kind of redundant. Gremlin is likely the card that has more impact here, being able to attack into my stuff and being able to block. I guess they actually can attack into my stuff because they've only got 2 red sources, but, you know, I basically think I am more happy if they cast a Rager next turn than if they cast the Furnace Gremlin, although it's pretty close. And then, yeah, we go at the face, do start to get a little bit aggressive here, flipping Gobakon, and Gobakon's just going to start to take over at this point. Again, still a little bit worried. They could definitely sneak out the win somehow, but we're dealing enough pressure and flipping this battle, and so, you know, removal won't really do much because the backside of Gobakon does offer my creatures hexproof. So, again, we are just still kind of chilling. All right, and they block sack. Yep, they got a 3/3 incubator. We flip our Gobakon. Yeah, pass it back to the opponent. They've just drawn a land. They get in with their agent. Again, not a huge deal. Really not a problem for me. They sacrifice their treasure to the Rager. They're just digging. They have to find some sort of answer. But again, this Light Shield Array does protect me against removal. Oh, and also, I just realized I actually made a mistake here. I should have last turn attack with this Norn's Inquisitor. Because I was just talking about, you know, setting up your turns and planning out lethal over multiple turns. How many turns does it take? You know, what's your clock? How many turns of attacking all does it take to kill them? I could have just attacked the Norn's Inquisitor last turn as well. Got them down to 18, grown the Norn's Inquisitor because of the Light Shield Array, and then I'd have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, plus the 5, so you'd have 11. That's 11 power in the air. Jump my 5, 5, that's another 7 power in the air. That's lethal because my opponent would be at 18, not 19. So, I should have done that. I think the reason of the moment was like, I was like, okay, well, I'm kind of okay here. I don't mind just sitting back, being a little more defensive, giving them one more turn of trying to find an answer. I don't mind that. Because, again, the way that I lose this game is maybe they draw an opportune removal spell or a combat trick. I shouldn't have been worried about that, though, because, again, like I was just describing, I have the Light Shield Array. I shouldn't be worried about getting gotten by an interaction spell. I should have just gone for the turn 2 lethal, because there's a very small chance that goes wrong here. So I do think I made a mistake by not attacking with the Inquisitor last turn. All right, back to my turn. I actually, again, play a little bit conservative here. I just attack with the Vigilance creature here. And, you know, actually, this time I do agree with it. Basically, you know, I had the same, the clock doesn't change, right? That's something to think about here. I put them down to 14 here, and then I'm going to have lethal next turn for sure. Before, I could have shaved a turn off the clock, but if I attack with the Inquisitor, attacking with multiple things here doesn't shave a turn off the clock. So I just go, I'm just going to get into the Vigilance creature. I could have gotten it with the 5/5 in the air too. You know, I think that'd be fine, but I went with the conservative line. Again, I've got this Light Shield Array to protect me, but they have drawn multiple cards off the Rager, so they could set something up like cast, you know, a sorcery speed removal spell on my Singer. I go sacrifice. They cast an instant speed removal spell in response. That still probably wouldn't be that bad for me, so it's kind of a wash. You could argue one way or the other, but I decided to be a little conservative here. So yep, get him for 4. Grow my Singer end of turn. Yep, they once again get with this Aetherblade Agent. And at this point, I'm thinking, all right, how do I actually lose here? I actually do go for the block here. I don't think getting put to 6 really puts me in danger of losing, but, you know, some weird string of events could happen here, and I just know if I just, like, you know, don't take additional damage, my Flyers are going to get there. Yep, they put their Rager. They go for the equip, and this means the coast is mostly clear here. I go for the boost, and I've got this Light Shield Array protection, and that's the game. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed this video. I know I said I was going to show you all the games, but 2 of them were just ones where I just completely ran the opponent over. They, like, cast 1 spell, so didn't feel like those would be that interesting. But if you're really interested in seeing me run the opponent over, also comment that and let me know if you want to see those games. I hope you enjoyed this. I think, like I said, it's going to be my last one for March of the Machine with the new set coming out. But, yeah, I've really enjoyed doing these style of videos, and it seems like everybody out there has too. So these are going to keep coming for the new set. Once again, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.